The council chamber was enormous, built to hold representatives from 100 different worlds. Ambassador Day sat in the human section, his hands folded on the table in front of him. He looked calm, almost bored. But those who knew humans well might have noticed the slight tightness around his eyes. The Kaldrith war chief stood at the center of the chamber. His name was Vorath, and he was massive, even for his species. His armor gleamed under the lights, covered in medals from 40 years of conquest. He spoke with the confidence of someone who had never truly lost a battle. "The human colonies on the outer rim are weak," Vorath declared, his voice booming across the chamber. "They sit on resources that could fuel entire fleets, yet they do nothing with them. They waste this potential on mining operations and research stations. The Kaldrith Empire could use these resources properly." Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The Kaldrith had a reputation for being aggressive, but this was bold even for them. Humans had been part of the galactic community for 300 years. They were known as traders, diplomats, and scientists. Quiet, peaceful, small in territory but rich in knowledge. Day said nothing. He simply watched Vorath continue his presentation. "We have observed their defenses," Vorath continued, bringing up holographic displays of human patrol routes. 3 cruisers guard their mining colony at Titan's Edge. 3 ships protecting 50,000 civilians. It is almost insulting how little they value their own people. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some species looked uncomfortable. Others seemed curious. The Kaldrith had conquered 47 star systems. They knew war. If they said the humans were weak, perhaps they were right. Then something unusual happened. The elder archivists entered the chamber. Everyone fell silent. The elders rarely left their archives. They were ancient beings, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. They kept records of everything, watched everything, but almost never interfered. Their sudden appearance meant something important was about to happen. The lead elder moved to the center of the chamber. Its form was hard to describe, constantly shifting between states of matter. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We must interrupt these proceedings," the elder said. "The archives contain specific directives regarding humanity. These directives have stood for 300 years, unchanged and absolute." Vorath looked annoyed at the interruption. "The archives contain many things, Elder. Surely they are not all relevant to—" "There is only one directive regarding humanity," the Elder cut him off. Its voice carried a weight that silenced the war chief immediately. "Only one rule that the archives mark as absolute. Never defy them, never threaten them, never test their resolve." The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Ambassador Day still hadn't moved. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes had grown distant, as if he was looking at something far away. Vorath recovered quickly. He laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. "With respect, Elder, your archives are wrong. We have studied the humans extensively. They are merchants, diplomats. They negotiate everything. They have avoided conflict for 3 centuries. They do not even maintain a proper military, only patrol ships and defense stations." "The archives are not wrong," the elder replied quietly. "They remember what you have forgotten. They remember what happened before humanity joined the council. Myths and legends." Vorath waved his hand dismissively. "Every species has stories of their past glories. The humans are no different. They tell tales of ancient wars to make themselves seem fierce. But we see what they are now. Soft, comfortable, weak." Other council members began to nod. The Kaldrith made sense. Everyone had met humans. They were friendly, always willing to compromise, quick to find peaceful solutions. They hadn't fought a major war in 300 years. Their military was small. Their territory limited by choice, not by force. The elder turned its attention to Day. "Ambassador, will you not speak for your people?" Day finally looked up. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "We asked the Caldreth not to pursue this action. We asked them 6 times through official channels. We offered to discuss resource sharing, joint operations, fair trade agreements. They refused every offer." "Because your offers were insufficient," Vorath snapped. "You hoard resources you do not use." "We use them," Day said softly, "just not in ways you understand." He stood slowly, gathering his documents. "The Human Council has authorized me to make one final statement before this vote proceeds." The chamber waited. Day looked directly at Vorath. "If you attack Titan's Edge, we will respond. We are asking you one last time not to do this, not because we cannot stop you, but because of what it will cost. Not just you, all of us. We have worked for 300 years to build something different, something better. Please do not make us remember what we were." Vorath sneered. "Is that a threat, Ambassador?" "No," Day said quietly. "It's a warning. There is a difference." The vote was called. The Caldreth motion to invade human territory passed with a significant majority. Many council members believed the elders were being overcautious. Humanity was clearly non-threatening. This would be a simple territorial adjustment, perhaps followed by negotiations. Day packed his documents carefully, methodically. He nodded respectfully to the elders as he passed them. "We tried to warn them," the elder said softly, for Day's ears alone. "I know," Day replied. "We tried too." As he walked out of the chamber, several other ambassadors noticed something strange. Day's hands were completely steady. His breathing was calm. His expression was peaceful. But his eyes had changed. They held something these aliens had never seen in a human before. Not fear, not anger, not even determination, resignation, like a man who knows exactly what is about to happen and wishes desperately that it could be avoided. Like someone watching a child run toward a cliff, having done everything possible to stop them, now simply waiting for the inevitable fall. The Caldreth fleet would launch within 2 weeks. They expected a quick victory, followed by negotiations and territorial concessions. They would gain resources, the humans would accept their limited loss, and life would continue. The elders returned to their archives and sealed the human records behind 7 layers of security. They marked the date carefully. They knew what was coming. They had seen it before, long ago, in humanity's own history. They had tried to warn the galaxy. No one had listened. As Day reached his ship, he sent a single encrypted message back to Earth. Just 3 words. They chose war. On Earth, in the Human Defense Council chambers, that message was received. Admiral Bin read it 3 times, then closed his eyes and sat in silence for a full minute. Around the table, every human representative shared the same expression: sadness, regret, and something else: grim determination. "Activate Protocol Nightfall," Bin said quietly. "Send the recall notices. All of them. Everywhere." "Sir," one of the junior officers said, his voice shaking slightly. "It's been 300 years. Are we sure we even remember how?" Bin looked at him with ancient eyes that had seen too much. "Oh, we remember. That's the problem. We remember everything." The orders went out across human space, coded in a language that hadn't been used in 3 centuries. But every human knew it. They had all learned it, in schools, in training, in quiet moments with their elders who whispered about the old ways, the dark times, the reasons why they had chosen peace. Humanity began to wake up, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The mining colony at Titan's Edge was not a beautiful place. It was a cluster of industrial domes and habitat modules built around a rich asteroid field. 50,000 people lived there, most of them miners and their families. They knew their work was dangerous, but they had never worried about war. Captain Jiwoo commanded one of the 3 patrol cruisers assigned to protect the colony. She was 42 years old and had spent her entire career in peaceful patrol duty. Her ship, the Morning Star, had never fired its weapons at anything but asteroids and debris. On the morning the Caldrith arrived, Ji-woo was having coffee in her ready room, reviewing maintenance schedules. "Captain, we have multiple contacts entering the system," her sensor officer called out. "Reading 200 ships. Caldrith signatures." Ji-woo set down her coffee carefully. Her hands did not shake. "Sound general quarters. Contact the colony. Begin evacuation procedures. Send a flash message to Earth Command." Her crew moved with quick efficiency. They had trained for this, though none of them had ever expected to actually need those skills. Within 3 minutes, the Morning Star was at battle stations. The other 2 patrol cruisers, Dawn's Light and Horizon's Edge, formed up alongside, 3 ships facing 200. Ji-woo opened a channel to the Caldrith fleet. "Caldrith vessels, this is Captain Ji-woo of the Human Patrol Service. You are entering protected space. Please state your intentions." The response was immediate and cold. "Human vessel, you are ordered to power down your weapons and withdraw. This system is now under Caldrith jurisdiction. Resistance will be met with destruction." Ji-woo looked at her tactical display. 200 warships, 3 patrol cruisers. The math was simple. They could not win. They could not even delay the Caldrith for long. But they could do one thing. "All ships," she transmitted to her small squadron. "Remember your training. Remember why we're here. By the colony, time to evacuate." On the colony, Medical Officer Hai was helping organize the evacuation. She moved through the crowded corridors, directing families toward the escape shuttles. Children cried. Adults looked terrified. Everyone had heard the announcement. The Caldrith were here. Communications Officer Na worked frantically in the main comm center. She was trying to get a message through to Earth, but the Caldrith were jamming most frequencies. She switched through channels, looking for anything that would reach past the interference. In orbit, the 3 human patrol cruisers accelerated toward the Caldrith fleet. It looked like suicide, and in many ways it was. But Ji-woo had her orders. Orders that every human patrol captain carried, sealed and secret, hoped to never be used. She had opened them the moment the Caldrith appeared. "Engage enemy fleet," the orders read. "Buy time for civilians. Document everything. Send confirmation of first strike. Hold the line." The Morning Star opened fire at maximum range. Its railguns spat metal at incredible speeds. A few shots hit Caldrith shields, causing minimal damage. The Caldrith returned fire with overwhelming force. But the 3 human ships did something unexpected. They did not fight like patrol vessels. They fought like warships that knew they were going to die and wanted to make it count. They used tactics that seemed impossible for peaceful patrol crews to know. Ji-woo's ship dove under the Caldrith formation, firing at weak points in their shield coverage. Dawn's Light detonated a mine pattern that crippled 2 Caldrith destroyers. Horizon's Edge rammed a Caldrith cruiser at full speed, taking it down in a mutual explosion. The Caldrith were shocked. These were supposed to be merchants playing at being soldiers, but they fought with skill and ferocity that spoke of real training, real preparation. It did not matter. The numbers were too overwhelming. The Morning Star took a direct hit to its engine section. Ji-woo felt the ship shudder and die around her. Emergency systems kicked in, but she knew they only had minutes. "All hands, abandon ship," she ordered. "You fought well. You honored the oath." As her crew evacuated, Ji-woo stayed at her post. She had one more duty. She opened the captain's secure terminal and recorded a final message. "This is Captain Ji-woo, Morning Star. We engaged enemy fleet at 0900 hours. Confirmed hostile action against civilian colony. Confirmed first strike by Caldrith forces. Rules of engagement violated. Titan's Edge is under attack. Recommend immediate response." She sent the message on every available channel, then began gathering sensor data. Everything the ships had recorded. Every tactical detail. every weapon signature. She compressed it all into a tight beam transmission aimed at the nearest relay station. On the colony, Na was still trying to get a message through. She had almost given up when she saw a brief opening in the jamming pattern. A tiny window, just a few seconds long. She did not hesitate. She typed 4 words and a set of coordinates. Her hands flew across the keyboard. The message was just 15 words total, but they were the most important words she would ever send. They struck first. Coordinates confirmed. Titan's Edge under attack. Send everything. The message went out. Na did not know if it reached anyone, but she had done her job. Then the bombardment began. The Caldrith did not waste time with warnings. They opened fire on the colony with orbital weapons. The first strike killed 12,000 people in seconds. Entire habitat domes cracked open, spilling air and lives into the void. Hai was in one of the domes when it was hit. She felt the floor shake, heard the terrible sound of metal tearing. Emergency bulkheads slammed down, sealing sections. She found herself in a damaged medical bay with 30 wounded people and no way out. She did what she had trained to do. She treated the wounded. She stabilized the critical cases. She worked with steady hands even as the walls shook from more impacts, even as the screams echoed through the corridors, even as she knew she was probably going to die. The evacuation shuttles tried to launch. Some made it out. Many did not. Caldrith fighters hunted them down, destroying them one by one. The Caldrith had decided to make an example of Titan's Edge. They wanted the humans to know what happened when you stood in their way. By the end of the first day, 40,000 people were dead. The colony was shattered. The few survivors huddled in sealed sections, waiting for rescue or death. But Na's message had gotten through. On Earth, in the Human Defense Council chambers, they received it. Admiral Bin read it 3 times. His face showed no emotion. But his hands gripped the edge of the table hard enough that his knuckles turned white. Confirmed first strike, he said quietly. They killed civilians, 40,000 dead. Titan's Edge is gone. The room was silent. Every person there knew what this meant. 300 years of peace. 300 years of choosing a different path. 300 years of trying to be better than their violent history. All of it ended with those 4 words. They struck first. Activate Protocol Nightfall, Bin said. His voice was steady but carried a weight that made everyone in the room feel cold. Full mobilization, total war status, send the recall codes, all of them, every human who ever served, every reserve, every veteran, every sleeper. Sir, someone asked quietly, what about the rules of engagement? Bin looked up. His eyes were hard as stone. There are no rules of engagement anymore. They fired first. They killed civilians. We respond under the old codes. Pre-contact protocols. Make them understand what they've done. The orders went out across human space, in simple, clear language that left no room for doubt. Condition red. Full mobilization. First strike confirmed. 40,000 civilians killed. Titan's Edge destroyed. No restraint. No quarter. Remember Titan's Edge. Honor the fallen. Make them regret this day. On Mars, Engineer Ho received his recall notice while designing irrigation systems. He read it once, closed his eyes, and felt something old wake up inside him. He had been a combat engineer before he retired. He remembered those skills. He walked to his workshop and began converting his designs from irrigation to weapons systems. On Europa, Teacher Mi received her recall while teaching children about ancient Earth history. She finished the lesson calmly, said goodbye to her students, and reported to the mobilization center. She had been a tactical analyst for 20 years before becoming a teacher. Those instincts came back instantly. Across 23 star systems, 500 million humans received the same message. And every single one of them responded. They put down their tools. They left their jobs. They kissed their families goodbye. They reported for duty. because every human had served, every human had trained. They had all learned the old ways, the dark ways, the ways of war that their species had perfected over 10,000 years of nearly constant fighting. They had chosen to put those ways aside. They had chosen peace. They had spent 300 years building a better civilization. But the Kaldrith had just reminded them of what they used to be, what they could become again if pushed hard enough. The galaxy was about to learn a terrible lesson. Humanity had not forgotten how to make war. They had simply been trying very, very hard not to. The Kaldrith expected many things after they destroyed Titan's Edge. They expected diplomatic protests. They expected economic sanctions. They might even have expected a limited military response, a few retaliatory strikes that would lead to negotiations. They did not expect what actually happened. 3 weeks after Titan's Edge fell, the Kaldreth patrol fleet near the border worlds encountered something impossible. A human fleet of 2,000 ships appeared seemingly from nowhere, not military vessels. Converted civilian ships, freighters with weapons bolted to their hulls, mining vessels equipped with military-grade sensors, passenger liners transformed into troop carriers. But they were not piloted by civilians anymore. Lieutenant Yun commanded a squadron of 12 converted cargo haulers. 3 weeks ago, she had been running shipping routes between Earth and the outer colonies. Now she sat in a command chair, wearing a uniform she thought she would never put on again, giving orders she hoped she would never have to give. "All ships weapons free," she said calmly. "Target their life support first, engines second, weapons third. No survivors unless they surrender immediately." Her squadron hit the Kaldreth patrol like a hammer. The cargo haulers moved with precision that should have been impossible. They used tactics the Kaldreth had never seen before: flanking maneuvers, coordinated fire patterns, psychological warfare. One hauler would disable a Kaldreth ship, leaving it drifting helpless. Then the squadron would move on, forcing the Kaldreth to choose between rescuing their crew or pursuing the attackers. Every choice cost them. Every decision hurt them. The patrol was destroyed in 14 minutes. Yun's squadron took minimal damage. As they withdrew, she recorded a message that was broadcast on all Kaldreth frequencies. "This was for Titan's Edge. We are just getting started." On Earth, the transformation was total and terrifying. Engineer Ho stood in what had been a civilian shipyard 3 weeks ago. Now it was a military production facility running 24 hours a day. Civilian ships came in, warships came out. "How are we doing this so fast?" his assistant asked, looking overwhelmed. Ho smiled grimly. "Because we've been preparing for 300 years. We told ourselves it was just in case. We told ourselves it would never be needed. But we kept the plans. We maintained the knowledge. We trained every generation in the basics. We never really forgot how." He gestured to the production line. "Every civilian vessel is built with military conversion in mind. The hull reinforcement points are already there. The power systems can handle weapon loads. The control systems use military-grade architecture. We just had to bolt on the weapons and activate the combat protocols." "But the crews," the assistant protested. "These are merchants, miners, teachers." "Who all completed military service," Ho interrupted. 5 years, minimum, for every human. We rotate everyone through. We tell ourselves it's civic duty, tradition, character building. But really, it means every human knows how to fight. They just choose not to unless they have to." The assistant looked at the numbers scrolling across his screen. 2,000 ships in 3 weeks, and we're not even at full production yet. "No," Ho agreed. "We're not. Give it another month, we'll have 5,000. Another month after that, 10,000. The Kaldrith have no idea what they've awakened." On Mars, Teacher Me worked in a tactical command center. Her job was to coordinate fleet movements across multiple star systems. She did it with the ease of someone who had been born for it, because she had been. Humans did not just train soldiers. They trained every person to think tactically, to understand strategy, to see patterns and exploit weaknesses. They taught it in schools as logic and problem-solving. They practiced it in games and sports. They made it part of their culture, now that training had purpose again. Caldrith fleet moving toward the Deneb system, one of her analysts reported. Looks like they're trying to reinforce their positions. Me studied the tactical display. Send Squadron 7 to intercept. Have them engage just long enough to make the Caldrith commit, then withdraw. Squadron 9 will hit them from behind while they're focused forward. Standard hammer and anvil. That's a tactic from the Terran Pacific War, the analyst said, surprised. From 800 years ago. Yes, Me said. And it still works. The Caldrith have been fighting the same way for centuries. They think honor and direct confrontation win wars. We learn differently. We learned that war is about making your enemy hurt until they stop fighting. There's no honor in it. There's only victory or death. The Caldrith intercepted human communications and began to realize something was wrong. The humans were not angry. They were not emotional. They did not rage or threaten or boast. They simply executed their orders with cold, mechanical precision. One intercepted message was particularly chilling. It was a squad leader reporting to his commander. Target neutralized, 13 Caldrith vessels disabled, crew survival rate estimated at 40%. Proceeding to next objective, no casualties on our side. The tone was the same as someone reporting a completed delivery. Calm, professional, detached. The Caldrith War Chief Vorath reviewed these reports with growing unease. They fight without honor, he complained to his staff. They target life support systems. They force us to choose between rescue and combat. They attack supply lines instead of facing us directly. His tactical advisor, an old Caldrith who had studied many wars, looked grim. They fight to win, War Chief. Not for glory, not for honor. They fight to end the war as quickly as possible with minimum cost to themselves. They have no interest in fair fights or glorious battles. It is cowardly, Vorath snapped. It is effective, the advisor replied. We have lost 30% of our border fleets in 3 weeks. Our supply lines are in chaos. Our communications are compromised, and they are just getting started. The humans are not fighting the war we expected. They are fighting a different kind of war entirely. On a human battlecruiser, combat pilot Ray led a strike team against a Caldrith communications hub. Her team did not destroy it. They captured it. Then they used it to broadcast false orders throughout the Caldrith fleet, sending ships to the wrong locations, creating confusion and chaos. Psychological warfare, Ray explained to her younger pilots. Make them doubt their orders, make them question their commanders, make them afraid to trust their own systems, break their will to fight before you break their ships. It saves lives, ours and theirs. Is that honorable? One of the young pilots asked. Ray looked at him with cold eyes. Honor is a luxury for people not trying to survive. We are not here to have an honorable fight. We are here to win so thoroughly that no one ever attacks us again. Do you understand? The pilot nodded slowly. Yes, ma'am. Back on Earth, Admiral Bin received reports from across the war zone. The news was good. Better than good. The Caldrith were in full retreat on 3 fronts. Their empire was fracturing, but Bin did not smile. He looked tired, old beyond his years. Sir, one of his officers said carefully, we're winning, decisively. The Caldrith will be ready to negotiate within weeks. I know, Bin said quietly. That's what worries me. Sir? We're too good at this, Bin explained. We have spent 300 years pretending we forgot how to make war. But we never forgot. We just buried it deep. Now it's all coming back. And I'm afraid of what happens if we can't put it away again when this is over. He gestured to the tactical displays showing human fleets tearing through Caldrith space with brutal efficiency. Look at us. 3 weeks ago, these were merchants and miners and teachers. Now they are soldiers executing perfect military operations. We flipped the switch too easily. That's what the elders were warning about. Not that we would lose, but that we might win too well, that we might remember we're actually very, very good at destroying things when we choose to be. The officer had no response to that. Across human space, 500 million people had mobilized. Factories ran day and night. Shipyards produced vessels at impossible rates. Every human worked toward one goal: make the Kaldrith regret their choice so completely that no one would ever dare attack humanity again. And they were succeeding. The Kaldrith Empire, which had stood for 800 years, was crumbling. Not because humans were better warriors, but because humans understood war in a way the Kaldrith never could. Humans had been fighting wars for 10,000 years. They had perfected it, refined it, made it into an art and a science. Then they had deliberately put it aside, trying to be better than their history. The Kaldrith had made them remember. And now the galaxy was learning why the elders had only one rule about humanity: never defy them. 6 months after Titan's Edge fell, Ambassador Day returned to the Galactic Council chamber, but he was no longer dressed as a diplomat. He wore a military uniform now, with rank insignia marking him as High Commander of the Human Defense Fleet. The change was more than cosmetic. Everything about him was different. His posture, his voice, the way he looked at the other council members. The friendly, patient diplomat was gone. In his place stood something the galaxy had never seen before: a human military commander at the height of a total war. The Galactic Council had called an emergency session. The Kaldrith Empire was collapsing. In 6 months, humans had destroyed 60% of their fleet, occupied 12 of their colonies, and blockaded their homeworld. The speed and brutality of the human response had shocked everyone. The council leader, a being called Thur from a neutral species, spoke first. "Commander Day, the council has gathered to discuss peace terms. The Kaldrith have indicated they wish to surrender. We ask that you accept their—" "No," Day said simply. The chamber fell silent. No one had expected such a blunt refusal. "Commander," Thur said carefully, "surely you do not mean to continue this war when your enemy has already been defeated." "They have not been defeated," Day replied, his voice cold and factual. "They have been hurt. They are ready to negotiate. That is different from being defeated. We told them not to attack us. They attacked anyway. We told them what would happen. They did not believe us. Now they will learn the full cost of their choice." Vorath, the Kaldrith war chief, stood up. He looked smaller than he had 6 months ago, diminished. "We seek peace, human. We acknowledge our error. We offer reparations." "You offer what you cannot afford to keep," Day interrupted. "You offer peace because continuing the war will destroy you completely. That is not the same as understanding what you did wrong. That is just survival instinct." The elder archivist spoke from its place at the edge of the chamber. "Commander Day, we understand your anger, but the Kaldrith have suffered greatly. Is that not enough?" Day turned to face the elder. His expression softened slightly, showing a hint of the diplomat he used to be. "Elder, with respect, they have not suffered like Titan's Edge suffered. They have lost ships and colonies. We lost 40,000 civilians in a single day. Men, women, children, killed because the Kaldrith wanted to make an example of us." He turned back to the council. "We will accept surrender, but on our terms. The Kaldrith Empire will be dissolved. Their military will be completely disbanded. Their colonies will be placed under human supervision until we determine they have learned what it means to attack civilians." "That is too harsh," Vorath protested. "You cannot destroy an empire that has stood for 800 years. "We can," Day said flatly. "We already have. Your economy is in ruins. Your supply lines are broken. Your people are starving on 12 different worlds because we control all access to those systems. You have no cards left to play. You can accept our terms, or we can continue this war until there is no Kaldrith Empire left at all. Combat pilot Ray was leading strikes deep into Kaldrith space when the peace talks began. Her squadron had been operating behind enemy lines for 2 months, hitting targets the Kaldrith thought were safe. "New orders coming through," her communications officer reported. "Command wants us to hit civilian infrastructure?" "Clarify that," Ray said sharply. "Power plants, water treatment facilities, food distribution centers, nothing that directly kills civilians, but everything they need to survive comfortably." Ray understood immediately. They want the Kaldrith people to feel the war, not just their military. Make sure every single Kaldrith citizen knows that their leaders started a war they could not win. It was harsh, it was deliberate, but it was effective. Within weeks, protests broke out on Kaldrith worlds, not against the humans, against their own government, against the leaders who had dragged them into a war with an enemy they did not understand. On Mars, Teacher Me coordinated the occupation of captured Kaldrith colonies. Her job was to ensure the humans did not become cruel occupiers, but also to make sure the Kaldrith understood their new reality. "We provide food, water, medical care," she instructed her occupation commanders. "We treat civilians with respect, but we make it clear that these basics are privileges they have because they stopped fighting. The moment they resist, the moment they cause trouble, those privileges are reconsidered." One of her commanders was uncomfortable with this. "It feels like we're bullying them." Me looked at him with tired eyes. "We are showing them what they did to us, but in a controlled way. They killed our civilians without thought. We are occupying their worlds and keeping their civilians alive. We are teaching them the difference between their empire and ours. It is a harsh lesson, but it is better than the alternative." Dr. Tay, a human historian, was invited to speak to the Galactic Council about humanity's history. He stood before the assembled species and told them things they had never known. "Humanity fought wars for 10,000 years," he began. "We fought with stones and sticks, then with bronze and iron, then with gunpowder and machines, then with atomic weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We got very, very good at killing each other." He brought up images from Earth's history, battlefields covered in bodies, cities reduced to rubble, entire populations displaced or destroyed. "We nearly wiped ourselves out 3 times, Tay continued. "Each time we stopped just before the final destruction. And each time we learned a little more about the true cost of war, not just in lives lost, but in the damage to our collective soul." The council watched in horror as images of human wars played across the displays. 300 years ago, we decided to try something different," Tay said. "We decided to join the galactic community and see if we could be better than our history. We chose peace. We chose diplomacy. We chose to put away our weapons and be traders, scientists, explorers. We were not weak. We were recovering." He looked directly at the Kaldrith delegation. "You saw our peaceful nature and thought it was weakness. You saw our small military and thought we had forgotten how to fight. You were wrong. We had not forgotten. We were choosing not to remember. You took that choice away from us." Vorath stood up, his voice desperate. "We made a mistake. We admit this. But you have punished us beyond reason. Our empire is destroyed. Our people suffer. When will it be enough?" Day answered before Tay could. "When we are certain you will never do this again. When we are certain no other species will look at what happened to you and think they could do better. We are making an example of you, War Chief, just like you tried to make an example of Titan's Edge. The difference is, we are succeeding." The occupation of Kaldrith space continued for another 3 months. Human forces controlled supply lines, managed resources, and gradually rebuilt the infrastructure they had destroyed. But they did it on human terms. Captain Jiwoo, who had survived the destruction of her ship at Titan's Edge, was now commanding the peacekeeping force on the Kaldrith homeworld. She walked through the capital city in her uniform, watching Kaldrith civilians go about their lives under human supervision. "Do you hate them?" her second officer asked her quietly. Jiwoo thought about that. "No," she said finally. "I hate what they did. I hate that they forced us to become this again. But the individual Kaldrith? Most of them are just people who trusted the wrong leaders. We show them what good leadership looks like. We show them that strength is not just the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to choose not to." The peace treaty was finally signed 9 months after Titan's Edge fell. The terms were harsh, but not genocidal. The Kaldrith Empire was dissolved. Its military was limited to defensive forces only. Its colonies became independent worlds, with humans overseeing their transition for the next 50 years. But the real victory was not in the treaty. It was in the message it sent to the galaxy. Humanity had shown what happened when you attacked them. Not in anger, not in revenge, but with cold, calculated precision. They had demonstrated that their peaceful nature was a choice, not a weakness, and that if you took away that choice, you faced a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. The elders updated their archives. The single rule remained unchanged: never defy humanity. But now, everyone understood why. 1 year after Titan's Edge fell, Medical Officer Hai stood in a field hospital on the Kaldrith homeworld. She was tired. She had been working for 16 hours straight, treating both human and Kaldrith wounded. The war was officially over. But small conflicts still flared up occasionally. A young Kaldrith soldier was brought in with a severe injury. His leg had been crushed in an industrial accident at one of the rebuilding sites. Hai worked quickly and efficiently, stabilizing him before sending him to surgery. When he woke up later, he found Hai checking his vital signs. He stared at her uniform, at the human insignia, and his eyes filled with confusion and something like fear. "Why do you help us?" he asked quietly. "After what we did to your people, why not just let us suffer?" Hai finished her examination before answering. She pulled up a chair and sat down beside his bed. "Because the war is over," she said simply. "We fight to end the fighting. That is the difference between us and you. You fought for glory, for resources, for expansion. We fought to make sure no one would ever attack us again. Now that we have achieved that, there is no reason to continue hurting you." "But we killed so many of your people," the soldier said, his voice breaking. 40,000 at Titan's Edge alone. How can you forgive that?" Hai's expression hardened slightly. "We have not forgiven it. We will never forget it. But we understand that you are not responsible for the decisions your leaders made. You were a soldier following orders. We punished the leaders who gave those orders. We helped the people who were caught in the middle." She stood up to leave, then paused. Every enemy was once just a person who made bad choices, or who followed the wrong leaders, or who did not understand the consequences of their actions. We remember that. Even when we are at war, we remember that. It is what makes us different. On Earth, Admiral Bin sat in a quiet office, reviewing the demobilization plans. Slowly, carefully, humanity was putting away its weapons again. The 5,000 warships were being converted back to civilian vessels. The millions of soldiers were returning to their old lives. But it was harder this time. Many of them had trouble adjusting. They had remembered what it felt like to be warriors. They had remembered the clarity of purpose, the brotherhood of combat, the sharp focus of survival. Bin worried about this. He worried that humanity had opened a door that would be hard to close again. Lieutenant Yun was one of those struggling to adjust. She sat in a counseling session trying to explain how she felt. "I was a cargo pilot," she said quietly. "I liked my job. It was peaceful. But then the war came and I became something else. I became a squadron commander. I led people into battle. I made decisions that saved lives and cost lives, and I was good at it. Too good. The counselor nodded. And now you are supposed to go back to hauling cargo? Yes, Yun said. But I do not know if I can. I do not know if I want to. That scares me. I do not want to be someone who needs war to feel alive. But I also do not know how to be satisfied with a peaceful life anymore. The counselor was quiet for a moment. You are not alone in feeling this way. Hundreds of thousands of humans are struggling with the same thing. We are a species that is very good at war. That is our burden. But we are also a species that chooses peace despite that. That is our strength. The struggle you feel right now, that is what makes us human. The fact that you are worried about enjoying war too much means you understand the danger. That understanding is what will keep you on the right path. Ambassador Day returned to his diplomatic duties, but he kept his military rank. The council had requested this. They wanted to remember what he represented. Peace, yes, but also the reminder of what humanity could become, if pushed. He attended a council session where the elders were presenting their final report on the human-Kaldreth War. We have studied this conflict carefully, the elder archivist said. We have reviewed every battle, every decision, every consequence, and we have come to a conclusion about humanity that must be recorded for all future civilizations to understand. The chamber was silent, waiting. Humanity is the only species we have observed that wages total war in pursuit of lasting peace, the elder continued. They do not fight to conquer. They do not fight for glory or resources. They fight to ensure they never have to fight again. This makes them uniquely dangerous and uniquely valuable to the galactic community. The elder brought up displays showing the war's progression. When attacked, humanity transformed from a peaceful civilization into a war machine in mere weeks. They demonstrated abilities and tactics that shocked their enemies. They won decisively, but then, crucially, they stopped. They could have destroyed the Kaldreth completely. They had the ability and the justification, but they chose not to. They chose to rebuild. They chose to teach, rather than annihilate. Vorath, no longer a war chief, but now just a citizen representative, stood up. I wish to speak, if the council permits. Day nodded. You may speak. Vorath looked older now, humbled. I led my people into a war we could not win, because I did not understand our enemy. I saw humans as weak because they chose peace. I did not realize that choosing peace when you are capable of great violence is not weakness. It is strength. He turned to face Day directly. My people have suffered greatly. We have lost our empire, our pride, our certainty about our place in the galaxy. But we have gained something more valuable. We have learned what real strength looks like. It is not the ability to destroy. It is the wisdom to choose not to destroy when you have the power to do so. Dae's expression softened. You have learned well, Vorath. That is why we are here helping you rebuild instead of standing over your ruins. The rebuilding of Kaldreth space took years. Human peacekeepers remained, gradually training Kaldreth security forces to defend their own worlds. The process was slow and sometimes difficult. Old hatreds did not disappear overnight. But gradually, something remarkable happened. The Kaldreth began to understand what the humans had been trying to show them. They began to see that strength without wisdom was just violence. That power without restraint was just destruction. Captain Jiwoo spent 3 years as the peacekeeping commander on the Kaldreth homeworld. When she finally prepared to leave, thousands of Kaldreth citizens came to see her off. They did not cheer. They did not celebrate. But they bowed their heads in respect. One elderly Kaldreth approached her. Commander Jiwoo, I fought in the war. I fired weapons at your ships. I believed we were right and you were wrong. I lost 3 children when your forces destroyed our supply lines and famine came. Jiwoo braced herself for anger, for accusations, but the old Kaldrith surprised her. I understand now, he continued. You did not want that famine. You did not want any of this. But when we forced you to fight, you fought in the only way that would end the war quickly. You hurt us to teach us, and now you stay to help us heal. This is something our empire would never have done. We would have conquered and moved on. You conquer and then rebuild. I wanted you to know that some of us understand. Some of us are grateful. Jiwoo felt tears in her eyes. I am sorry for your loss, she said quietly. Every life lost in that war was a failure of diplomacy, a failure of understanding. We all share that failure. 10 years after Titan's Edge, a monument was built at the site of the destroyed colony. It was made from the wreckage of the human patrol cruisers and the Kaldrith battleships. Twisted metal formed into a sculpture that showed both species reaching toward each other. The inscription was simple. 40,000 died here because we did not understand each other. We honor them by learning to do better. Humans and Kaldrith attended the dedication ceremony together. Former enemies stood side by side. Medical Officer Hai, now a senior administrator in the Kaldrith healthcare system, gave a speech. We cannot change the past, she said. We cannot bring back the dead. But we can honor them by making sure their deaths were not meaningless. We can build a future where this never happens again. That is how we remember Titan's Edge. Not with anger, not with hatred, but with determination to be better than we were. The Galactic Council formally updated the Elder Archives. The entry about humanity was expanded, but the core rule remained the same. Never defy humanity. But now there was a second entry added. But if you do, remember that they will defeat you, and then they will help you stand up again. This is their nature. This is what makes them both dangerous and irreplaceable in the galactic community. Ambassador Day retired from both military and diplomatic service. He spent his final years teaching at the Galactic Academy, training the next generation of diplomats and peacekeepers. His final lecture was always the same message. War is sometimes necessary, but peace is always better. The hard part is not knowing when to fight. It is knowing when to stop fighting and start rebuilding. Humanity learned this lesson through 10,000 years of suffering. We paid for this knowledge in blood. We offer it to you freely, hoping you will not have to pay the same price. The galaxy learned. Slowly, painfully, but they learned. And humanity remained what they had always been. A species capable of terrible violence, choosing instead the harder path of lasting peace. The elders had been right. There was only one rule about humanity: never defy them. Because they would win, but they would also show you why winning was never the point. Ending the war was the point. Building something better was the point. And that, more than any weapon or tactic, was what made humanity truly dangerous.